Hello again, I am Adewale Eke. I am your government and CIS teacher. Remember, all the classes on this platform are brought to you by Isaac Humanitarian Foundation. We hope you've been following us, we hope you've been gaining knowledge, and our goal is to see you excel in your forthcoming examinations. Feel free to drop questions in the comment section and we'll be glad to respond to your questions. Questions have been dropped with regards to government, and that is the reason why the topic for today is like a reverse to what we previously skipped due to lack of time, because we have 30 minutes to consider each topic, and so we decided to go for the most important topics and then allow you read the less important topics. But due to popular demand, we'll go back to concepts of government and we'll try to treat as many concepts of government as we can in 2 classes. But this particular class should be directed at one concept of government, one bedrock of government as it relates to the subject. We have government, the subject, and government, the concept that is studied by the subject government. I believe you understand me. Let us say government with capital letter G, that is the subject, and government with small letter g, that is what the subject studies. Alright, in today's class we will be studying democracy. We all know democracy. There is no way you can talk about government in today's world without talking about democracy. Democracy is arguably the bedrock, the most important part in the study of government, because every other part of government that we're going to study has a relationship with democracy, either as opposite or as something that has a bearing on democracy. So today we'll study democracy. Now, any country that the people are involved in their own governance, any country that involves the generality of the people in the administration of that country, is a country that is said to practice democracy. Are you following me? Now, when the people that live in a country are considered in the governance of that country, when the people that live in a country have a say on how they are ruled, then that country practices what? Democracy. Now, democracy is called a majoritarian rule because the majority of the people are those that make decisions. Only a few people cannot make decisions in a democracy. When a few people are in charge of government, that is not democracy. That is the opposite of democracy, called what? Dictatorship. Are we together? Now, democracy has to do with a society where everyone is involved in governance. In democracy, power does not belong to the government, but power belongs to the what? People. Are we together? Now, we can simply define democracy as a government, democracy, a government that involves everyone. Now let us put in brackets adults in the administration of the state. A government that involves everyone. Now, of course, children cannot be involved in governance, so we'll call it everyone here. We'll replace it with what? Adults in the administration of the state. But mind you, when laws are made by the majoritarian government, the government must consider the plight of children in the making of laws. So laws must also consider the welfare of children, even though children are not taking part in the governance of that state. Are we together? Now, we have 2 types of democracy. And before we go to the 2 types of democracy, I will tell you that the most renowned and the most accepted definition of democracy is that which is given by an erstwhile president of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, who says democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I want to believe that every government student already knows of this definition given by Abraham Lincoln. Now, democracy is of 2 types, 2 major types. We have direct democracy and we have what? Indirect democracy. Now, when democracy is direct, it means everybody comes together to everybody assemble in one place to discuss governance. When everybody comes together in one place to discuss how to administer themselves, that kind of democracy is called what? Direct democracy. And this was the first type of democracy that was practiced. And the people that invented democracy, the Athenians. They are the people of Athens, and they occupied the country Greece. Capital of Greece is what? Athens. Now, these people practice direct democracy. In Athens, everybody came together, every adult came together to analyze and to suggest what is better for them. Now, we have indirect democracy. In indirect democracy, everybody can no longer come together because of the development of large societies. Your parents are now giving birth to 12 children, 14 children, 25 wives, 100 children. So it's no longer possible for every adult to assemble in one place. Sometimes even one family cannot assemble in one place. Are you following me? So now direct democracy is no longer feasible. When something is no longer feasible, it means it is not achievable. Are we together? Direct democracy is no longer feasible because due to the large societies that we now have, it is impossible for everybody to gather in one place. Let us assume that India, the country with the second largest population in the world, is practicing direct democracy. It means that 1.2 billion people will assemble in one place. That is laughable. It is unachievable. Or let us say China is practicing direct democracy. It means that 1.3 million people will be in one place. Of course, you know what will happen in this current phase of the coronavirus. You can imagine that can be the beginning of the end of the world. I hope you do understand me. So because it is no longer possible for several people to come en masse or to gather en masse to analyze and to suggest solutions to their common problems. Now, it is now necessary for everybody, every adult, to elect a few of them that will now come together to analyze their problems, to proffer solutions to their problems, and to unearth innovations that will lead to their development. Now, it is as a result of the inability of people to gather again in one place that was done in direct democracy that gave birth to what? Indirect democracy. Now, I repeat, in direct democracy, everybody was involved in governance. Everybody was a member of the government and they gathered in one place to perform their government roles or their governmental roles. Are you with me? But in indirect democracy, now everybody now elects a few of them. The people that are elected are members of the everybody, for lack of a better word. Now, people in a country will now elect through voting a few of them that will represent everybody in government. Now, if a country has, for instance, 100 people, now 100, or let us say 1 million people. 1 million. Now, this 1 million people cannot gather in one place. There is no place that can accommodate 1 million people. They will not even hear themselves. It will be an eyesore. So these 1 million people in different locations will now stay and elect a few of them to represent them in what? Government. Let us say from this 1 million now, just let's say 100 will now represent the 1 million in government. Of course, 100 people can gather. Are we together? For instance, the Senate of Nigeria is made up of 99 people. Are we together? Now, the House of Representatives is made up of 360 people. So this can gather in one place. They don't even gather in one place. The Senate has its own chambers, and the House of Representatives that has 360 people has its own chambers. Now, because of indirect democracy, the 1 million will now elect the 99 to be in Senate and the 360 to be in what? House of Representatives. Otherwise, now 500 people would have been in Senate and 500,000 people would have been in Senate and 500,000 people would have been in the House of Representatives. That will not work. Are you with me? It is as a result of the increasing number of citizens that direct democracy became outdated and the birth of indirect democracy became necessary. I believe you understand me. Now, in today's world, countries of the world practice what? Indirect democracy. In ancient times, most people practice, or people that practice democracy practice what? Direct democracy. For instance, let us go back to pre-colonial Nigeria. Pre-colonial. The Igbos of pre-colonial Nigeria, in their village assemblies, in their town hall meetings, gather together to rule themselves. That is what we call what? Direct what? Democracy. Are we together? So direct democracy can be defined as the gathering of people, of everyone or of every adult. Direct democracy can be defined as the gathering of every adult for the purpose of what? Governance. Indirect democracy can be defined as the state whereby the adults of a country or a state elect some of them to represent everyone in what? Governance. I believe you do understand me. Now, there are certain things that must happen for democracy. Either, or when we say democracy now, we are referring to indirect democracy. But pay attention, before I continue, there is also what we call, in modern times, political scientists are beginning to differentiate democracy according to 3 major lines. But irrespective of these differentiations, now this two is still the most valid because the 3 differentiations fall under these two. Now we have consensus democracy in modern times. The 2 notable differentiations of democracy, that is the 2 major types of democracy, is what we call direct and what? Indirect. But there are other ways of classifying democracy. One is what? Consensus. The other is constitutional. And the third is deliberative. Now, consensus democracy can also be referred to as direct because in direct democracy, everybody comes together and reach an agreement together. When there is a consensus, it means that everyone in that particular place have agreed to take a particular decision. There is a consensus amongst them. So we can call consensus democracy what? Direct democracy. Now we have constitutional democracy. Constitutional democracy means that the highest body of laws belongs to the Constitution. That is, the Constitution is the highest body of laws. The Constitution is the sacrosanct body of laws. What this means is that the laws that cannot be challenged in the land belongs to the what? Constitution. What the Constitution says is final, irrespective of what the members of government what say. It is the Constitution that gives directions to the members of what? Government. And in indirect democracy, the Constitution is the fundamental body of laws that guide both the government and the what? Governed, that creates principles that both the government and the governed what? Follow. Are we together? So we can also call constitutional what? Indirect. And deliberative. Deliberative democracy means that one person cannot just come and give decisions. They must discuss. No one man is too powerful. Everybody has an opinion to give. Deliberative means that there is a discussion, they are deliberating on it. And in today's world, of course, I'm talking about the Senate and the House of Reps, what they do is to deliberate and agree at a decision, mostly through what? Voting. Are you with me? After deliberations in the Senate, you will see when the Senate President will say, those for, say aye, those against say what? Nay. After they have deliberated. So we can call both constitutional and deliberative democracy part of what? Indirect democracy. Are you with me? And we can call consensus democracy part of direct democracy. Are we together? Now, let us now move on to what we call the features of democracy or attributes of democracy or characteristics of democracy. That is the things that must be present for us to say indeed democracy is being what? Practiced. Are you following me? Number one. Now let me start from majoritarian rule. Number one feature of democracy. Let us title it Features of Democracy. Number one, we have majoritarian rule. Or rule by the what? Majority. The majority is always the controller of government. That is, what this means is that if during the elections, because the bedrock of democracy is what? Elections. Elections is the bedrock of democracy, and these elections must have certain features as well. Firstly, elections must be free and fair. It must be devoid. It must be separated from violence. It must be separated from rigging, from thuggery, from arson, from stealing of ballot boxes. Elections must be free and what? Fair. Elections must be periodic. It means that if we do elections today, we must determine when the next elections will take place. We cannot do elections today and just leave the government there to rule forever. That is not democracy. Elections are periodic. For instance, general elections in Nigeria, that is elections bringing in the president, the governor, National Assembly members and State Assembly members. National Assembly, I've told you in our previous class, refers to both the Senate and the House of Reps. The Senate is called the upper house. The House of Representatives is called the lower house. The Senate is also called the red chamber, and the House of Representatives is called the green chamber. Senate has 99 members. House of Representatives has 360 members. Now, from every state of Nigeria, there are 3 senators representing every state. 3 senators represent every state in Nigeria. Now, in Nigeria, we have 36 states. Now, if we say 3 times 36, we'll have 90. Sorry, there is something wrong with what I have been saying. I'm very, very sorry. The Senate of Nigeria has 109 members. I beg your pardon. The Senate of Nigeria has 109 members. So now every state of Nigeria is represented. Every state of Nigeria is represented with 3 senators. 3 senators represent every state, irrespective of the size of the state. Now we have 36 states of Nigeria. So 3 times 36 we will get 108. 3 times 36 we get 108. Now the 109th member, that is the 109th person that makes up the 109 members in the Senate, is from FCT Abuja. So every state of Nigeria has 3 senatorial districts, that is 3 senators representing them. But FCT Abuja, which is not the state of Nigeria, of course, is the Federal Capital Territory, has 1 member. And each state is represented by 3 members of the Senate, irrespective of size, whether the state is large or small. It has only 3 senators in it. Now, but with regards to the House of Reps, House of Reps members are chosen from states according to the length or to the population of that state rather. Now, when a state has a large population, it means that state will provide more House of Reps members. When the state has a small population, the state will provide what? Lesser House of Reps members. In this light, between Ibadan and Bayelsa, which of them will provide more House of Reps members? Your guess is as good as mine. Ibadan and Bayelsa will produce lesser House of Reps members. Are we together? While members to the Senate are chosen by equality amongst the states of Nigeria, members to the House of Representatives are chosen according to what? Population. Now, the first feature of democracy is rule by the majority. The party or the candidate that has majority votes assume leadership. A candidate with few votes cannot win an election. And so when the candidate with the majority votes win elections, it is assumed that the majority of people are controlling what? Government. Are you with me? So majority always rules in a democracy. Now, number 2, protection of minority. In a democracy, of course, the majority always rules. What about the minority? Are they not included in the stream of things? What is their fate? For instance, in Nigeria, we have 3 majority ethnic groups: Hausa, Yoruba, Fulani. So it means that, in Nigeria, our politics is ethnic politics. Most people do not vote according to credibility. They vote for people because these people are members of their ethnic group. Ethnic politics, it is a backward style of politics. But unfortunately, that is what we are practicing in Nigeria. With regards to presidency, it will be very, very, very difficult for a Benin man, for example, to become president except by divine intervention. Of course, we all know how Goodluck Jonathan became president of Nigeria. He had a godfather, Olusegun Obasanjo. He was vice president. His boss died, and he became president, acting president, and later president, and then contested because of incumbency, power of incumbency. He won elections. That is the only man from a minority group that has ruled Nigeria. It is impossible. It is mostly impossible for a minority ethnic member to rule Nigeria. Are you with me? But because even though the minorities cannot assume leadership of presidency and the likes, just as the minority cannot become presidents in Nigeria, in some states we also have majority and minority. For instance, in Edo State, we have majority can be Benin, Esa, and let's say Esako. But what about those from Agenebode, those from Ora, those from Akoko Edo? Do you understand? Those are the minority. They can hardly produce governorship. Are you with me? So even though they cannot produce governorship, but the constitution must always protect them, because in a democracy, everyone is equal. Everyone has equal rights to government. Are you with me? Now, so number 2 feature of democracy is protection of what? Minority rights. And the Constitution of Nigeria protects minority rights. Section 14, subsection 3 of the Nigerian Constitution says that the government and the agencies of government must reflect the federal character of Nigeria. What this means is that the government must be composed by both members of majority ethnic groups and members of what? Minority ethnic groups. No, and also the agencies of government like AFCC, ICPC, NAFDAC, they must also have members of staff from across the different ethnic groups of Nigeria, to the extent that no ethnic group should be seen as dominating government or dominating the agencies of what? Government. Do you understand me? Alright. Now, number 3 feature of democracy is periodic elections. In Nigeria, general elections are conducted not once in 20 years or once anytime they like. General elections are conducted once in every 4 years. What this means is that the tenure of the governor, of the president, of House of Reps members, of senators is for what? 4 years. 4 years. And in the local government, the tenure for chairmen and councillors is 3 years. So general elections are conducted in Nigeria every 4 years, but periodic elections in the local governments of Nigeria are conducted every 3 years. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria. We have 36 states of Nigeria. We have 109 senators, and we have 360 House of Reps members. Now, number 3 feature of democracy, we will call that the presence of the rule of law. Presence of the rule of law. The rule of law, which states that the law is supreme. The rule of law, which states that everyone is equal. The rule of law, which states that the law is impartial, must be present for us to have effective democracy. Because if there is no rule of law, the president who has so much power will control government and nothing can happen to him. He will arbitrarily use his powers against the people, and nobody can do anything to him. So to prevent this, the rule of law and all its principles must be present. Now, number 5. I will stop here. I will admonish you to read your books and get the other features of democracy. Now let me do this, the independence of the judiciary. The independence of the judiciary. Now, in a democratic system, the third arm of government, which is called the judiciary or the judicature, made up of the bar and the bench, must be independent of the ruling government. This is so because when the ruling government goes against its boundaries, there must be a check on its powers. Now, also, we have two other arms of government, that is the legislature and the executive. When the legislature and the executive are not functioning properly, when there is a quarrel, when there is a feud between the legislature and the executive as to who is supposed to do this and who is not supposed to do this, now the arm of government that will now step in to settle their quarrel and tell them their duties according to the constitution is the what? Judiciary. Just imagine if there were no judiciary, there would be anarchy, a state of lawlessness, and an anarchical society cannot be called a democratic society. Thank you very much.